You just dropped 32 points, pulled down 15 boards, and dished out 7 assists in one of the most electric, high-stakes games of the season. You've left it all on the floor, sweat, strategy, and pure fire. But when the final buzzer sounds and the lights dim, one thing becomes crystal clear. None of that matters now. Because what everyone's talking about isn't your stats. It's your silence. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Alyssa Thomas might have been the best player on the court that night, but the second she walked past a media room and out the door, without a single word, she handed the win, not just a scoreboard, to the Indiana Fever. Because in the WNBA, talent doesn't give you immunity from responsibility. And walking away when you're supposed to face the press, that's not just a missed interview. That's a statement. And not the kind you want tied to your name. Let's back up and talk about what actually went down. Thomas came into Gamebridge Fieldhouse with her usual edge, focused, fierce, and ready to prove something. With her fiancée, DeWanna Bonner, returning to Indiana after that messy, mid-season departure from the Fever, there was already tension in the air. The crowd? Heated. The energy? Thick. And every Mercury player? Feeling it. But Alyssa? She thrived in the chaos. She matched every Fever run. She bullied her way to the rim. She hit mid-range shots like it was muscle memory. She was everywhere. For most of the game, she looked completely unstoppable. And yet, Indiana still won. And that's where the story takes a turn. Because when that final buzzer sounded and the Fever secured a dominant win, without Caitlin Clark on the court, by the way, things got weird fast. First, fans noticed Alyssa jawing at the crowd during the fourth quarter. Nothing new. Trash talk is part of the game. But the timing? Not great. She was going back and forth with fans behind the bench, gesturing, talking loud, making it clear she wasn't just playing the Fever. She was playing the audience, too. And you know what? Fans were giving it right back. Especially with Bonner back in the building. After bailing on Indiana earlier this season, the tension was palpable. She got booed, loudly. And Alyssa, clearly fed up, took it personally. But here's the thing. When you talk that much during the game and then duck out of media afterward, you lose the high ground. You lose the narrative. You lose respect. Because like it or not, post-game media isn't optional. It's the deal every professional athlete signs when they step into that spotlight. Play the game, face the mic, win or lose, good game or bad, you show up. Alyssa Thomas didn't. And now, the league is stepping in. Fines have been handed down, not just for skipping the media, but for what some insiders are calling conduct unbecoming of a veteran. That includes everything from the verbal spats with fans to ignoring league-mandated protocols after the final whistle. And let's be real, this isn't just about one skipped interview. This is about accountability. Alyssa Thomas is a franchise player, a face of her team, a veteran leader who should be setting the tone for younger players across the league. And instead of owning the moment, she chose silence. And that silence, it spoke volumes. Because let's not pretend the context isn't there. This wasn't some random Tuesday night game. This was Indiana. This was Caitlin Clark's house. Even if she wasn't in uniform, this was a revenge game, a media circus, and a potential playoff preview all rolled into one. And when the Mercury fell short and the crowd erupted and all eyes were on the post-game pressers, Thomas was nowhere to be found, which left the league with no choice but to respond. The fine wasn't massive, but it was symbolic, a reminder that no one, no matter how good they are, gets to rewrite the rules. And for fans, it was instant karma, because from the outside, this looked like the classic talk big, disappear when it matters moment. Trash talk all game, then ghost of cameras. And fans don't forget that kind of thing. Social media was ruthless. Comment after comment dragging Thomas for dodging the postgame. People calling it cowardly, unprofessional, and a bad look for the league. Some even pointed out that Clark, who's taken more hard hits and hostile press than anyone this season, never skips her media obligations, even when she's injured, even when she's targeted, even when the whole world is watching. Say what you want about Caitlin Clark, but she shows up, win or lose. And that's why fans saw Alyssa's disappearing act as a red flag, especially after all the whispers this season about cliques forming in locker rooms, about certain players resenting the attention Clark gets, about jealousy and entitlement festering behind the scenes. This incident, it poured gasoline on that fire, because whether she meant to or not, Thomas confirmed the worst fears of a growing number of WNBA viewers, that some veteran stars are more interested in controlling the narrative than owning the moment. And that's a problem, because this league is finally on the rise. Ticket sales are up, ratings are climbing, merchandise is flying off shelves. More people than ever are tuning in, investing in the storylines, learning the players, choosing their favorite teams. But when those new fans watch a star like Alyssa Thomas drop a near triple-double, only to walk off without a word, it sends a message, and not a good one, that maybe this league isn't ready for the spotlight, that maybe professionalism still has a ways to go, that maybe, just maybe, the culture needs to catch up to the talent. And that's why the league had to act, because silence from a star isn't just awkward, it's dangerous. It creates a vacuum that gets filled by speculation, resentment, and bad press. And if the WNBA wants to keep growing, it can't afford that kind of inconsistency. There's too much at stake, too many new eyes on the product, too many young fans watching how their heroes carry themselves after the final buzzer. Because leadership isn't about dropping 30 points. It's about how you carry yourself when the cameras are rolling and the scoreboard didn't go your way. And that's where Alyssa Thomas fumbled. She could have flipped the narrative, owned the loss, praised her teammates, talked about the crowd, even addressed the heat from the fans. One quote, one moment of vulnerability, one flash of accountability. That's all it would have taken. Instead, she walked away. And in doing so, she gave fans a storyline no stat sheet can fix. So what happens next? Hopefully, a reset, a lesson learned. Because Alyssa Thomas is too good to let one mistake define her. She's an all-time competitor, a fighter, a star. But stars don't just shine when they're winning. They shine when it's hard. And right now, the league needs more of that. More accountability, more professionalism, more players willing to face the music, not just play the game. Because if this is going to be the WNBA's breakout era, if this is a season that finally changes everything, then it has to be bigger than just ball. It has to be about culture, character, and showing up when it counts. So where does that leave us? With one of the league's top veterans now painted into a corner. Not because of what she did on the court, but because of what she refused to do afterward. And that's the real tragedy here. Alyssa Thomas could have used that podium to set the record straight, to own the night, to answer the critics, to elevate the game beyond just the scoreboard. Because moments like this, high-stakes matchups, media firestorms, passionate fans, they're opportunities, not inconveniences. But by walking away, she let the narrative run without her. And that's a dangerous game to play in a league that's fighting tooth and nail for media coverage. Because here's the thing, the WNBA doesn't get endless airtime. It doesn't dominate the front page or lead every sports segment. Every post-game interview, every soundbite, every highlight, those moments matter. They build the brand. They tell the stories. They pull in new fans who want more than just box scores. And when a star like Alyssa Thomas skips out, it tells the world this isn't important. And fans feel that. New viewers, maybe tuning in for the first time, see the silence, the dodge, the disconnect. And they wonder, if the players don't treat it like a big deal, why should we? And that's why the fine matters. It's not about punishing Thomas. It's about protecting the standard. The WNBA is finally getting attention on a global stage, and that spotlight is earned, not owed. And with that spotlight comes responsibility. Not perfection, not forced smiles, but presence. Show up, be accountable, win, lose, or meltdown. And look, let's not pretend media availability is anyone's favorite part of the job. We get it. It's awkward. It's repetitive. Sometimes it's hostile, but it's part of the package. It's part of being a pro. And when you're not just a player, but a leader, you don't get to pick and choose when that responsibility kicks in. Because here's where it hits different. Alyssa Thomas isn't just any player. She's supposed to be the grown-up in the room, the rock, the tone setter, the one younger players look to when things get messy. And what did she model? That if you're mad enough, if the loss stings enough, if the crowd jeers loud enough, you can just opt out accountability? That's not leadership. That's ego. And here's what really adds fuel to the fire. This wasn't just any game. This was Indiana. This was Caitlin Clark's turf. And even sidelined, Clark's shadow loomed over every second of that game. From the sellout crowd, to the broadcast camera pans, to the energy pulsing through Gamebridge Fieldhouse. You could feel her presence. And that, some fans believe, was part of the problem. Because Thomas has never hidden her disdain for the media obsession around Clark. And many think her silence wasn't about the game. It was about avoiding questions about Clark altogether. And that makes it worse. Because if you can't talk about your opponents, even when you lose, how can you claim to respect the league? This isn't high school beef. This is the WNBA. And if some players still haven't realized that Caitlin Clark is not a threat, she's a rising tide lifting everyone's boat, they're going to get left behind. Clark's popularity isn't a spotlight stealer. It's a spotlight builder. She brings in fans. She brings in cameras. And when those cameras land on games like Mercury versus Fever, every player on that court benefits, including Alyssa Thomas. But if you choose to use that platform to jaw at fans, then ghost the podium when it's time to speak, you're not a victim of hype. You're a participant in your own PR downfall. And that's why fans are frustrated. Because this generation of viewers doesn't just follow teams. They follow narratives. They want to know who's real, who owns their wins and losses, who claps back, who levels up, who takes the heat. And when a star ducks that, the audience notices. They start asking questions. Is she above the rules? Is she intimidated? Is she bitter about not being the headline anymore? And fair or not, those questions stick. Now let's talk about the real impact of this fine. Because it's not about the money. Let's be honest. WNBA fines are symbolic. They're not putting anyone in debt. But what they do is create precedent. They say, no matter who you are, if you disrespect the process, if you neglect your duties, you'll be held accountable. That matters. Because if the league had ignored it, swept it under the rug, they would have sent the opposite message, that veterans are untouchable, that rules only apply to rookies, and that professionalism is optional. Instead, they made it clear. You don't get to talk trash all game, then ghost the media when it doesn't go your way. You don't get to stir the pot, then walk away before the fire starts. You don't get to represent the league only on your terms. And honestly, that's the call the WNBA had to make. Because this season is different. This isn't the league of 5 years ago, fighting for airtime. This is the most watched, most covered, most debated WNBA season of all time. The scrutiny is real, and the standard has to match it. That means players, coaches, and organizations can't treat Media Day like a chore. It's not a favor, it's part of the job. And if you skip it, there are consequences. And now, Alyssa Thomas knows that firsthand. Hopefully, it's a lesson learned. Because love her or hate her, Alyssa is one of the most dominant players in the league. She's passionate. She's physical. She brings fire every single night. But fire without discipline? That's just chaos. And the WNBA doesn't need chaos right now. It needs leaders. It needs professionals. It needs players who don't just show up for the tip-off, but for the follow-through. Because that's how you build legacy. Not just through stats, but through consistency. Not just in games, but in the way you handle wins, losses, and everything in between. So as the Mercury try to reset and move forward, the question now is, will Alyssa Thomas step up? Will she use this moment to model something better? Will she own the fallout the same way she owns the paint? Or will this become just another chapter in a growing book of missed opportunities? That part? That's still unwritten. But one thing's for sure. This league is watching. The fans are watching. And the message has been sent. Show up or get fined trying. And here's what people forget in all this. When you're a player like Alyssa Thomas, you're not just competing on the court. You're competing in the court of public perception. Every game isn't just about the final score anymore. Every post-game quote, every on-court stare down, every tweet, every silence, It all builds a storyline. Whether you like it or not, you're playing two games at once, the one with a ball and the one with a brand. And right now, Alyssa is losing the second one. This is the part that stings for fans who actually like Thomas. Because let's be real, there's no one in the league who plays quite like her. She's tough. She's gritty. She's smart. The kind of player who doesn't take a single play off, who can carry a team through sheer will. But none of that means anything if you vanish when the spotlight shifts away from your control. You don't get to call out opponents, jaw at fans, and then suddenly act like the media doesn't exist because the game didn't go your way. That's not a leader. That's a selective performer. And worse, it puts her own teammates in the crosshairs. Because when Alyssa walks away from the mic, guess who has to face it? The rookies, the bench players, the coaches. Everyone else who didn't choose to ghost the press now has to clean up the mess. And that breeds resentment. Fast. This is how locker rooms crack. One skipped interview turns into, well, if she doesn't have to do it, why should I? And before you know it, Media Day becomes a ghost town, and the league's credibility starts to erode. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever, they didn't just win on the scoreboard. They won the optics war. They showed up. They answered questions. Even players who barely touched the court gave time to reporters. Because they understand the assignment. They get that being professional doesn't stop at the buzzer. And let's not pretend the Fever haven't had their own drama. Caitlin Clark has taken more elbows, more fouls, more hate than any rookie in recent memory. She's been body-checked, mocked, dismissed, and yet she never skips the mic. Even injured, she's front row on the bench. She's vocal. She's locked in. And when the cameras roll after the game, she shows up. That's leadership. That's professionalism. That's what builds fan loyalty and league integrity. So when fans saw Alyssa, a veteran, walk away from that duty, it didn't sit right. It made it clear that some players still don't see the bigger picture. That for all the talk about growing the league, some stars only want the spotlight when it's flattering, not when it's earned through adversity. And honestly, that's where the WNBA has to draw the line. You can't grow a professional league if your professionals pick and choose when to be professional. If you want the money, the fame, the endorsement deals, the sold-out arenas, you take the whole deal, press included. You don't ghost the very people helping tell your story just because you're pissed. You think LeBron gets to walk off after a finals loss without a quote? You think Aya Wilson can put up 10 points and skip the media without blowback? Not a chance. And here's the irony. Thomas could have flipped the script if she had just shown up and said, yeah, the fans were loud. The crowd was tough. It got personal out there. But credit to Indiana. They played a great game. Guess what? Fans would have respected that, even liked her more for it. Because it's not about being perfect. It's about being present. But instead, she gave silence. And in the absence of words, the internet filled in the blanks. And those blanks, not flattering. Rumors, assumptions, people saying she was jealous of Clark, others saying she's afraid of the attention, some even speculating there's a growing rift in the Mercury locker room because of it. Is any of that confirmed? No. But when you don't speak, you lose control of your own narrative. And let's be real, Phoenix is not in a position to be taking PR hits right now. With Bonner's return to Indiana already stirring up emotions, this team needed a composed, measured presence. Instead, they walked away from the Flames and left the fans to light their own match. And that's the word that keeps coming up again and again when people talk about this game. Avoidance. Avoiding the press. Avoiding accountability. Avoiding the responsibility that comes with being a leader in a growing league. And for what? Pride? Because you couldn't handle a few tough questions? Because you couldn't stomach giving Indiana their due? That's not pride. That's ego with bad timing. And look, every athlete has a bad night. Everyone has moments where the last thing they want to do is answer a reporter's question about their missed free throw or fourth quarter collapse. That's human. But this job, it requires those moments. Because when you sign that contract, you're not just an athlete anymore. You're a public figure, a role model, a face of the brand. And how you act in the dark determines how bright your light will shine. Right now, Alyssa's light dimmed, not because of her skills, but because of her silence. But there's still time. Time to own the moment, to issue a statement, to come back in the next game, play hard, and then sit down at the mic and say, yeah, I dropped the ball last time, but I'm here now. That would speak louder than any fine, because redemption isn't about being perfect. It's about being accountable. And if Alyssa Thomas wants to be remembered as more than just a great stat line, if she wants to be a legacy player, the kind that shifts culture, the kind whose name we say in 10 years with reverence, she's got to show up, not just for the points, but for the moments that define leadership. Because this league is evolving fast, and there's no room for passengers. Either you help steer the ship, or you get left behind in the wake. So here's to hoping Thomas gets back on board, because the league needs her. The fans want to support her. And her teammates? They deserve a leader who doesn't check out when things get messy. Drop a comment below. Do you think Thomas should face harsher consequences? Or was it fine enough to send a message? And do you think players are being held to unfair standards with all the attention this season? Hit that subscribe button if you're here for the real talk, the behind-the-scenes drama, and the unapologetic truth about what's really going down in the WNBA. Because one thing's clear, the game is changing, and the ones who don't change with it, they'll be remembered for the moments they skipped, not the ones they played.